guys, it's Amy here with my buddy Remi, and happy COVID-19 self-isolation to you. I escaped from the city today out to my friend's farm where we are practicing social distancing while we're doing a little bit of horse stuff out here. And I thought it'd be a good chance to chat a little bit about a couple things that I think might be helpful. A little background is that I grew up in a family that didn't have a ton of money, and I was always horse crazy, but it was pretty rare that I could afford to actually pay for lessons. So I grew up working around horses at different horse stables and stuff, learning whatever I could, and I was exposed to a lot of different ways of doing things. I also realized that there are just about as many ways to do things as there are people who are horse people. So anything I tell you today, take it with a grain of salt and find out what works best for you and your horse. But the biggest thing is that, if you're financially able to keep your horse at a beautiful boarding facility with an indoor arena and professionals there all the time to help you, that's amazing. But I think a lot of people are in the boat of being lovers of horses and maybe even having access to a horse or two, but maybe can't afford that kind of high-end situation. So I just want to make a couple videos to show you a few things, just that'll make your own horse journey at home a little bit easier. Remi here is he's an only child. Well, my friend Ruth has Remi, and they have a donkey as well. So they have a little herd of family of two. But Remi is their only horse, and I actually have quite a few friends who are in that situation where they have one or two horses for pleasure and for fun at home. But a lot of people run into challenges with little everyday things, and maybe they don't have a coach nearby to just ask about stuff. So here's a few little tips of some things that work pretty well, and you can try them and see what you think. Today I wanted to talk to you about some basic behavioral things. When I met Remi, so Remi is an off-track standard bred, and when I met Remi, there's not a mean bone in his body, but he was not very polite in some ways. He wouldn't stand tight, he hated to be in the barn, he was a bit of a basket case to handle and to ride, he'd rush you through the gates. So we've just, in a couple months of knowing Remi, we've been just working through a few of those bugs with him. So one thing you're gonna notice here is that Remi's not tied. So a few weeks back, we're actually training Remi for harness work again. And a few weeks back, I thought, gee, it's really inconvenient to always be needing to find somewhere secure and safe to tie him, especially here because Ruth's family has this gorgeous old historical barn. I don't know if you can see. There's the old hay hoist there. This barn's got to be I don't know, what was it, Ruth, 100 years old, something like that. So gorgeous old barn, and they use it, but they mostly use it for storing their equipment, and we have our carriage in here and everything. So it's not really set up to be a horse barn. So that means that when we come in to groom or to tack up, there's nowhere great to tie Remi. So the biggest thing to tell you guys is that if there's any behavior that you want your horse to do, you can probably teach it to them. So I thought to myself, hey, wouldn't it be great to not need to tie him up anymore? So what we started doing was just dropping his lead rope down on the ground, and we just tell him, Remi, stand. So then if he moves away, I don't know if I can even entice him to move now. He's thinking about it. There you go. So if he moves away off his spot, all you gotta do is just say, hey, back up, put him exactly back where he was, and whoa, stand. And if you do that every single time he moves, he will discover, whether you're near him or far from him, that he needs to stand and he needs to stay where he's put. So that's been a huge help with him. We can do everything, our whole grooming regime, and harness up and hitch him into the buggy without ever having to have him tied up somewhere. So that's great. Of course, as with everything, you want to be thinking about things like safety, never would do this with a bridle because we wouldn't want him to step on the reins, and damage his little mouthy. But with a halter like this, a lead rope like this, pretty safe. And also, of course, I'm not going to leave Remi here and go have a cup of tea in the house. I don't think, no matter how much you trust your horse, not a good idea. So that's one thing that can just make your grooming and horse experience a lot more peaceful for you. So you don't always have to be trying to find a safe place to tie up. Another thing that I think a lot of people report having challenges with their horses with is with feet, picking up feet. It's funny, whenever I read horse ads online, they're like, oh, this horse is good with picking up its feet. And I'm like, well, I should hope so. Like, that's one of the most basic things you need your horse to do, right? And I really have no time or patience. I have a bit of a bad back, and I don't have time to be fighting with a horse or helping hold up, you know, part of his 1,000-pound body weight. I figure you have 3 good legs, you can do it yourself. Anyway, so I'm just gonna walk through how I like to pick up hooves. Remi was okay with hooves when I met him, but he did now and then, he actually has a weaker leg, so he did now and then just sort of say like, no, I don't wanna pick up this hoof. And I actually would love if he would do that today, because I'll show you what you can do. But basically with anything, you just wanna make sure you're super clear, right? So I don't wanna be patting the horse with my hand in the same way that I do when I'm just checking his leg. Because I actually don't want him to pick up his leg every time I touch it, right? I wanna be able to do an exam of his leg. So when I want him to actually pick it up, I'm gonna make the signal pretty different. And each of you will have your own way, but most of the time people say, you know, give a little pinch to the tendon, or, you know, pick it up here with this little bit of hair that's at the back of his fetlock there. Whatever the signal is that you use, you just do that, and then you can just pick out in the normal way. But what I did want to show you is if you have a horse that likes to say no about picking up his feet, there's this, I don't know if you guys have heard this, there's this training pyramid, they say, where you use as little force as necessary, as little force as possible, but as much force as necessary. So you want to start with a really small signal, like, hey Rams, you know, tap tap with my fingers here, just pick up your foot. And he and I know each other pretty well now, so he picks up. But let's say he didn't. You know, maybe he just leans down harder on that foot, or picks it up, shuffles it over and slams it back down again. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna give that little signal, like, hey, pick it up, and give it like 3 seconds. And if he doesn't, then you give the same signal, but a whole lot stronger. So actually start pinching that a little bit. It's not gonna cause any pain, but it's gonna be a little harder to ignore. And if he really doesn't pick it up, you know what's a great thing is if you have your handy dandy hoof pick in your pocket, you can just give a little tap tap right here on his, if he was a human, what would be his ankle bone. You start really light, feather light, so he just barely feels it. And if he doesn't pick up, you just start to, I'll do it on my foot, you just start to tap a little harder. Tap, 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 tap. And at the moment that he picks his foot up, you stop. And that's his reward. And you wouldn't believe, you have people who are like, oh, my horse, like they're so bad with their feet. 1 or 2 sessions like that, and all you have to do is like a little light touch, and they're like, oh yeah, no biggie. You know, a little tap, 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 and up it goes. And then you get to the point where you can just walk over and look at a foot, and the horse says, okay, here you go. So yeah, a couple little tips. As we think of other things we can talk about in the next little while, we'll do that, Remi and I. And we wish you a very happy self-isolation. What did someone on Facebook say? COVID-cation. Stay safe, everybody.